The purpose of this video is to show a worked out solution for the infamous Zelda problem from Exam 3 Part 2. So there's no doubt this is a difficult question, and so I think it would be helpful for me to provide a complete video solution to it. So I have taken one of the 5 versions of the question, and my plan is to post both this version and the solution and the video in the discussion board. If I can't attach the files to the discussion board, then I'll simply point you to the right place in Blackboard to find these items. So again, this is one version. It doesn't match up with all the versions, but it's pretty similar. So you may have different numbers, you may have some slightly different dates, but for the most part, you should be able to follow this solution and work out whichever version you did have. Okay, so I've got Zelda. It's placed in. In this particular scenario, it is a corporation, because in some it was an individual that bought a handful of different pieces of property. The property is consistent across all versions. The dates are not consistent across all versions, neither are the amounts, but the recovery periods are. And then in 2017, we've got no 179, no bonus. In 2018, we've got 179 and no bonus. And then 3 of the properties were sold in October of 2019, and you may have a different disposal date in your version. In 2016, there were 1231 losses of 17,000 recognized. Now, some of the versions have gains, and some of them have different amounts here. But when we get there, you should be able to watch what I do and figure out what your answer would be. Okay, so what I'm going to do is solve this problem in Excel. So the first thing I've done is I've taken that table of acquisitions and dropped it over here into Excel so we can just follow it. So, and that makes typing a little bit faster. So when I think about how I want to structure this problem, what I know is that I have the acquisition of property, the cost recovery of that property, and then in some cases the disposal of that property. And the question asks you to calculate both a total cost recovery for a couple of these items, and then it asks you to calculate the recognized gain in the character. So that tells me that step 1 of this process is, okay, what do I need? Well, I need to calculate depreciation for these items over time. What is the second step? The second step is that I need to determine what is the adjusted basis so that I can calculate any realized and recognized gains and losses. And then the third step is to try to identify the character of those gains and losses. Okay, so rather than keep talking about how we're going to do it, why don't we just do it? So what is the order in which depreciation is taken? Well, the first thing out of the box, is section 179. So I know I'm going to have to calculate section 179, but for the assets that were placed in service in 2017, which are these two, there is no 179, so I don't even need to worry about that. That tells me that my post 179 basis is my pre 179 basis. So why don't I just copy that down for now? I'm going to put in a column for bonus, but notice that we had no bonus that applied in this problem. So this leaves me my maker's depreciable basis after bonus. And again, that's going to be pretty straightforward because we're not taking any bonus. So that would be 0 for everything anyway. So once I have my maker's depreciable basis, now I'm ready to start calculating depreciation. And we know that the key to depreciation is finding the table factor. So I need to find the table factor so that I can find the depreciation. And I need to do that for a number of years. As a matter of fact, I need to do it for 3 years for these items. There we go. So let's get started. So how do I figure out what table I need to use? Well, I have 2 pieces of personal property placed in service in 2017. That means I need to apply the convention test to figure out which table. Is it half-year convention or mid-quarter convention? So to do that, I got to measure what I placed in service in the 4th quarter. That's that one item. What is it in total for 2017? That's that item plus the one above it. And there's no doubt, I don't even have to do this math, that is well in excess of 40%. So I'm right in the mid-quarter for the furniture and equipment. So let's just go ahead and depreciate the furniture and equipment. When were they placed in service? I've got a first quarter and I've got a fourth quarter. So I can flip over to my tables, go find first quarter. Here's first quarter. 7-year property, that's a 25% factor. For the fourth quarter, that's 5-year property, a 5% factor. Okay, so clearly I would have these printed off. In fact, I do have them printed off in front of me, but I'm going to flip back and forth so you guys can see where I'm getting these from. So my depreciation factor for 2017 is 0.25. My depreciation factor for 2017 is 0.05. Now it's just a little bit of simple math. All right, let's go on to 2018. Right, look, I'm in the tables. I can keep shooting along here. 2018 for first quarter, 7-year property, 2143, 5-year, 38. Now I can calculate 2018 depreciation. Look at that. You guys should be catching me on that mistake. Well, look what I just multiplied the depreciation factor by. The 2017 depreciation. Yeah, that's not the right answer. Whoops. How about times the depreciable basis? There we go. That feels better. Okay, now I need to do 2019. So 2019 is the third year. So for the fourth quarter, it looks like 22.8. For the 7-year, 15.31. All right. 1531 and 0.228. Okay. Now I am prepared to calculate out. So let's just go ahead and drop in the formulas to do that. Depreciation for the final period. But one of the problems is I disposed of some of this property, right? I disposed of the equipment in the fourth quarter of 2019. Okay, well, I know that if I dispose of equipment, I have to apply the same convention on the way out that I applied on the way in. That's the mid-quarter convention. So I love these tables. So I just put them in my work. Whoops. I put them in my work even when I do it in Excel. So I know I get half a quarter for the fourth quarter because that's when I took it out of service. I, of course, get a full quarter for everything before that. 3.5 out of 4. Okay, so again, I disposed of this equipment in the fourth quarter. So my depreciation factor reflects a full year. I don't get a full year. I need to multiply that by 3.5 divided by 4. And I better put in a little equal sign. There we go. Okay, so now I have the prorated amount of depreciation that I get. So that is all the cost recovery we needed to worry about. So let's put in a formula that adds up the cost recovery. That's the 2017. Well, hold on. Let's do this. It's the 179 plus any bonus plus any 2017 plus any 2018 plus 2019. And now I can just copy that right down. There we go. Okay, so I have total cost recovery. Just for the sake of it, that means I can also get to adjusted basis, which is, of course, my original cost minus cost recovery. There we go. Okay, so there's 2017. Now I need to move on to 2018. Now recall that 2018 had something a little bit different going on. So the first thing it had is Section 179. And what we do is we have to deal with Section 179 first. We do that before anything else. So what I need to determine is how much Section 179 eligible property did I have? Okay, is the machine eligible for 179? Yes. Is the auto eligible for 179? Yes. Is the office building? No. So my 179 eligible is the sum of those two items, or 2.63 million. Now, what is the 179 small business limit? That's given in the table pack, but it's also just happens to be 2.5 million. Well, that's just sloppy. Let's fix that a little bit. Whoops. There we go. All right, so you can see that I am actually in excess of the limit, right? Because I am only permitted $1 million. How much am I in excess of that? 1.3 million. So I only get 870,000 of Section 179. Okay, I need to apply that to the longest lived asset eligible. So which is the longest lived asset? Well, I've got a 7 and a 5 year. It's the 7 year. All right, there's my 179. Notice that it's reduced my basis. I'm not taking bonus, so now I have my maker's depreciable basis for these items, and I can get started depreciating them. Now let's recall I put these in service in 2018, so my 2017 depreciation factors are 0. So just to be safe, I'll zero those out. I need to start in 2018. So 2018, I look at this and say, okay, well, what is my convention test? Well, since I placed no personal property in service in the fourth quarter, the only thing I placed was real property. That plays no role in the convention test. I'm not even going to worry about calculating the convention test because it is 0 over anything. That's 0, that's less than 40%. So I'm squarely in the half year for both of these. I got a 7 year and a 5 year. That's good news. So I can go to my table pack. I can flip up to the half year convention tables. 20 in 0.1429, 32 in 0.2449. So I can capture 2018 and 2019's depreciation factors right there if I wanted to. Let's go back to 2018 and type them in. So for this one, 0.1429, the 7-year property. For this one, it is 0.2 for 5-year property. Okay, so let's do the calculation. Maker's depreciable basis times the depreciation factor gives me those two items. Okay, so here's a problem. This is an auto. Autos are subject to a depreciation limitation. Since I did not take bonus, I can go down and look at that in my table pack for 2018. There it is. $10,000 is my limit for 2018 for tax in the first year. So I need to go back to this. Well, I took $14,000. Well, I'm not eligible for $14,000. I'm eligible for $10,000. So that's all I'm allowed to take. All right, so that takes care of our real property. Let's worry about our office building. I've got an office building placed in service in October. Well, I have a table for real property. Here's one. The first one is residential. Well, an office building isn't residential. Let's go down to non-residential. Placed in service in October. Gives me a 0.535% depreciation factor for 2018. So I'll go over to 2018, 0.00535. Oh, don't be lazy, just copy it down. Oh boy. There we go. All right, so now I have 2018's depreciation across the board. I need to worry about 2019's depreciation. So where I would start is back at the tables again. Remember, we looked at these already. I've got half-year convention, 32 and 0.2449. I can do this one as well since I'm looking at tables. Let's go to the table pack and get it for placed in service in October for the full year, second year, 2.564. There we go. So here we are in 2019. Did I dispose of any of these properties? And of course the answer is yes. Here they are. I got rid of the machine and the office building. So congratulations, I kept the auto. All right, so if I got rid of the machine and the building, that means they don't get a full year's depreciation. They only get some part of that. The good news on the machine is, what convention did I use when I placed it in service? Half year. What convention do I use when I take it out of service? Half year. That fixes that depreciation factor. I don't need to worry about the auto for now, but I have an office building that I took out of service. I took it out of service in October. I used the mid-month convention. Okay, so this one I'm not going to type up for you. I'm going to count it on my fingers, which you can't see. So let's see. That means I get a half a month for the month of disposal. When did I dispose of it? Just to be safe, October. So that means in October, I get a half a month. That means I get a full month for January, February, all the way through September. Well, that's 9 months plus a half a month, that sounds like 9.5 months. So I just need to multiply, I need to multiply my factor by 9.5 divided by 12. That takes care of my real property depreciation factor. Okay, let's do a little calculation now. There we go. So hopefully I have all the right numbers here. It's looking pretty good, except for this guy, right? Let's go back to our table limitations on the auto. There we go. It's limited to 16,000. Do I have more than 16,000? I do, which means I only get 16,000. Okay, so now I have calculated my total cost recovery and my adjusted basis for the property sold. So just because I want to keep things clean, I'm going to get rid of the adjusted basis for the property I didn't sell, because the question doesn't ask for that, and that way I won't accidentally make a mistake and pick up one of the wrong properties when I'm calculating the realized gain or loss information. Okay, now I can use this information that I have to calculate the realized and recognized gains and losses. Okay, so just so we're aware, here's the sale of the 3 items and the sales price at which they were all sold. So let's go. I've created a little schedule in Excel again. So I did a little work ahead of time where I dropped in the sales price for each of these 3 items. Okay, now we just need to get the adjusted basis. So I can get the adjusted basis by going to the spreadsheet that I calculated previously. There we go. So now I have my realized and recognized gain or loss. And just for the sake of it, I'm going to total these right now. Okay, because I want to know what I'm facing. All right, so I have a total of 1.378952 of realized and recognized gain or loss. Okay, so now I'm through stage 2. Remember, stage 1, calculate depreciation and the adjusted basis. Stage 2, calculate the realized and recognized gain or loss. Stage 2 is awesome, right? Super easy. Now I'm into stage 3, and I have to determine the character of each one of these. So I'm going to start over here with the equipment, okay? And my first question is, what kind of property is it? Is it a capital asset, right? Well, property used in a trade or business held for more than a year is not a capital asset. Is it a 1231 asset? Well, it's definitely property used in a trade or business. It's definitely held for more than a year. I depreciated over 3 years. So it's a 1231 asset. Is it a 1245 asset? Well, the answer is yes. It's personal property. It was depreciated. So as a result, it cannot be a 1250 asset. So when I look at this, I say, okay, well, that means if I have a 1245, that means I have to recapture any of this gain. That means I have to treat it as ordinary to the extent of the depreciation I took. So let's go back and take a quick peek at the depreciation that I took on this asset. There it is. I took 16,000 of depreciation on that asset. My gain is only 5,000. That tells me that all of it is recaptured as ordinary under 1245. Okay, let's make sure we were perfectly clear about that characterization. So it's not a capital asset. It is a 1231 asset. It is a 1245 asset. If it's a 1245 asset, I have to apply depreciation recapture. Depreciation recapture says treat as ordinary the recognized gain to the extent of the depreciation taken. The amount of depreciation exceeded the gain amount, so it is all treated as 1245 ordinary gain. Okay, now we can go on to our machine. All right, so is the machine used in a trade or business a capital asset? No way. Is it a 1231 asset? Yes way. Is it a 1245 asset? Yes, therefore it cannot be a 1250 asset. Okay, so now I need to recognize this, I need to characterize this recognized gain or loss as 1245 ordinary to the extent of depreciation taken. So let's go back to our depreciation switch. Looks like I took 1318442. Is that more or less? Oh, look at that. That is actually less than my gain amount. So the depreciation amount is going to be the recapture amount, and the rest of it is going to fall down to simple old 1231. There we go. Okay, so I am cruising along now. I've got through 2 of these properties. Let's get to the office building, is it a capital asset? No way. Is it a 1231 asset? Yes way. Is it 1245? No way. Is it a 1250 asset? That's an interesting question, but we even need to back up. I got a little sloppy here. Let's go back and look at that 1231 asset. Let's look at the case. When did I place it in the service? October of 2018. October 12th of 2018. When did I sell it? October 12th of 2019. Did I hold that property long term? And I'm afraid the answer is no. As a result, it is not a 1231 asset. No recovery, no recapture applies to it. It's simply the sale of an ordinary asset. Just for convenience sake, I'm going to stick it under 1245, but it's not 1245. I just sold an ordinary asset. Okay, I am almost done. I've now characterized each of these sales individually. Is there anything that applies across the board to all of them? Well, yes. The first is I net on my 1231 cap gains and losses. To the extent it's a gain, I get to treat it as a capital gain. However, the case had some ordinary losses in the previous 5 years. The amount of ordinary losses were 17,000. So that means I have to recharacterize 17,000 away from 1231 and into ordinary. Okay, so now I think I can sum up my gains and losses, and I should be able to determine what they are. Okay, so we're down to one last step here, and we don't want to forget it. 291. What does 291 apply to? Well, let's see. Let's go back to our case. We are a corporation. Section 291 only applies to corporations. Got it. So 291 applies to 1250 property. Do I have 1250 property? No, because I didn't hold that building for more than a year. As a result, 291 doesn't apply. But just for the sake of argument for a second, let's assume that 291 did apply. And again, this should not have been part of anyone's scenario, but it could be coming, so it's probably important to understand it. If that's the case, then what we would do is say, well, look, that means that I need to recapture 20% of what might have been calculated as 1245 recapture under the 1245 rules. Well, that amount is the depreciation taken. So the total cost recovery on the building is $55,144. That is well in excess of the gain amount, which tells me that, whoops, getting lost here a little bit. That tells me that all of that gain would have been recaptured as ordinary. So I would take 20% of that and treat it as 291 recapture. The rest of it would be 1231. Okay, but we are not doing that. We're sticking with our original example here. So here is my result that probably explains it. So I have equipment that was sold for a $5,367 recognized gain. The character of that gain is ordinary. I have a machine that was sold for a recognized gain of $1,358,442. Of that amount, careful here, not 40,000 was 1231, 23,000 was 1231, and then the sum of the 1.3 million plus the amount I had to reclassify as ordinary, 1,335,442. That's the amount of ordinary gain on that asset. And then lastly, the building with a gain of 15,144. It is treated all as ordinary because it was an ordinary asset when sold. Okay, that is the worked out Zelda solution. Hopefully that'll help you guys.